Welcome to Backyard Bows. Hey, welcome to Backyard Bows. I'm Brandon, and we did all the mechanicals. This is kind of our follow-up video with all of the fixed blades. So a couple things. Let's do a little follow-up. We did all the fixed blades. We shot through a pumpkin a little bit smaller than this one. When I cut it open, the sidewalls of that pumpkin, I was thinking maybe 1.5 inches to 2 inches. They were more like 3 inches thick. So that's 3 inches thick on both sides with some guts in the middle. I have a feeling this one might be a little bit more. When I first made the video, I said this one's gonna assimilate more of an elk. That one would assimilate more of a big boar or deer. And then we have this piece of plywood in the backside to stop everything. That's where we're going to take our measurement. With the mechanicals, we didn't get as many pass-throughs as I was wanting. So I'm going to keep the one piece of plywood for now. If we get some of these fixed blades to go all the way through and out the other side where we can't measure, maybe we'll double up on that plywood. But for right now, I think that with the bigger pumpkin in front of it, the plywood behind it, which is kind of assimilating maybe that scapula, shoulder bone, we want to see this thing do a full pass through the pumpkin and then in and through the plywood, which is going to kind of be that bone. We have several different fixed blades. I think we have 14. So we'll shoot all of them just like we did. We'll kind of take our measurements. We'll take the weight. We'll create this graph for you guys to be able to analyze and to kind of assess yourselves at the very end. Hopefully this is really helpful. I love the mechanical blades because honestly, I was a little bit off with my assumptions of which ones would make a full pass, which ones wouldn't. The Schwackers held up to their own. Those mean greens did the job, which is what I was expecting them to do. But some of the other ones surprised me. So with these fixed blades, maybe we'll get some more surprises as well. But we'll start slinging here. We're going to shoot everything with the VTM again from Hoyt. We got some full metal jacket, 300 Easton arrows. I only went through 3 arrows through that whole mechanical broadhead test. But we got a couple more for this test. Let's get to shooting. All right, so on to the fixed blades. A couple things. We got a lot of fixed blades. But I got a little surprise at the end. We got a couple, we'll do all the ones that I see in circulation that are pretty popular, and then we'll do a couple knockoff brands. We'll do one I found in my dad's old bow case, kind of like an older broadhead. And then we also have a 125, a 150, and a 200 grain, kind of bumping up that weight, okay? And we'll be able to see how those compare to all these 100 grains, which we've been doing. So that's another thing. Every single mechanical and fixed that we've done is 100 grains. Variation a little bit, anywhere between 98 to 105, but somewhere claiming to be in the 100 grain category. So first off, we got the G5 Striker, 4-blade, real nice and small. It looks pretty. We'll see how it does. We got the big pumpkin up there. All right, let's rock and roll. My assessment, if I could have said it before I shot that, was that every single one of these broadhead was going to clear that piece of plywood. We will see. All right, so wow, as you can see, barely, I didn't even make it past the plywood. I would have guessed that every single one of these was going to clear that piece of plywood, but we did bump up that pumpkin. It's a bigger pumpkin, a lot more to meat to clear. And then, man, this thing, I can't wait to get these out of here, but it looks like it's decently intact. Didn't even clear it. Now we got the slick trick. This is another 4-blade. The 2 side blades are a hair smaller. They kind of start back. So very similar to the last one, just kind of different size blades. I'm not gonna lie, I'm shook. One, I think that big ass pumpkin played a little bit more factor into it, but I would have bet $100 that all these were gonna clear that piece of plywood. Here we go, second one. There we go. That one's through. So that is exactly what I want to see. Okay, so this way, now we can take our Sharpie, and what we're going to do, we're going to take this silver Sharpie and we're just going to make a mark right there, and this is going to be our measurement. So as all of these pass through, we'll get a different depth measurement, and I always like to do like an assessment. Broadhead seems to be in good shape. It looks like it's not bent. All the blades are still intact. That's nice to see. So there we go, first pass. All right, next up, Carbon Express XT. For all of those who asked in the video I posted, what were these? Man, these things are awesome. It kind of reminds me of like just an old school arrowhead. Has a couple little blades on the side. I hammered that Illinois buck right in the heart with this thing. They fly as true as you can get, easy to tune in, very consistent. I love these. Just put it in the field a couple weeks ago, but here we go, number 3. I think it stopped it. Stopped in his tracks. Didn't even make it through. I could have sworn that one was gonna go through, but it didn't. Stop by the plywood. All right, and like I said in the beginning, man, everything that I assumed about all these broadheads, honestly, I've kind of been way off. So, and they're not, you can't get them any more help. This VTM 31, man, this thing is a beast. So they're getting all the help they can get too. I did add the bigger pumpkin for these guys, which I think probably is gonna play a little effect into it, but I would have assumed more of these would have cleared. But next up, G5, Montec Outdoors, nice solid broadhead. Once again, looks like the plywood comes out on top. Ooh, all right. I'm not gonna lie, I don't care that it didn't make it a ton through. Even if we gave it an inch, that's fine. I mean, I like to see that it's punching and clearing and getting through that piece of plywood. And then on top of it, not a dent in that thing. That is perfect condition. I love that. Reused. It still looks sharp. All right, I love to see that. I'm gonna point something out for everybody who's sleeping. Okay, I'm not switching an arrow. I'm twisting that broadhead off using the same Easton 300 spine full metal jacket. Same aluminum insert that comes with these arrows. It hasn't even budged. It hasn't moved. The tip of this arrow is not damaged. I stand by, and again, we do reviews, and I'll test some arrows eventually, but I have in the past. I've used tons, but full metal jacket, 300 spine, Easton. We'll go back, we'll do another. We'll do the Montec 10 point. Okay, so very similar to the one we just shot, except it's kind of hollowed out on the inside. Stopped in its tracks, I think. Might be some of the least penetration we've gotten. All right, we got some Muzzies. It's that good old Muzzy, okay? These things are probably some of the most sold broadheads on the market, and they have been and probably will be. Killed several deer with them. Some of my friends' dads, my dad's favorite broadheads. I mean, these things are just, they've kind of been around for forever. You know, all these are making full passes. I think that big pumpkin is a very good, realistic anatomy assimilation to an elk. Full passes, we're just kind of seeing what's that bone crushing power, that extra penetration. Who's gonna get through that plywood after making it all the way through this pumpkin? So here we go, Muzzy. All right, perfect. Man, I'm trying to get different spots on that pumpkin. I almost got my table here. But I'm trying to make sure we get new, fresh piece of plywood in a different spot on the pumpkin every time. So we got our mark, say 2.5 inches. All right, next up, the NAP Thunderhead. Hunted with these several times, love them. They fly nice for a larger, larger bladed broadhead. They do have some thin blades on, which I'm worried about, but we will see. So there goes my first arrow down, and that's 7 shots in. So here's the assessment. It hit there. I think it probably should have come out back here. And my assessment is that these larger blades get caught on things. They get caught on meat, tissue, bones, cartilage, and it will kind of veer the direction of the exit wound. So not only did it not go all the way through, it kind of changed directions inside the pumpkin. So one of my favorites from the bunch, Quad Exodus. These things are sweet. I love how they sit back on that shaft of the arrow. They fly nice, they're solid. We'll see. These triangular ones just don't seem to make it through plywood, but we are getting into some of the broadheads that I'm a little bit more kind of excited and wanting to anticipate. So here's one of them, Quad Exodus. Love to see it. Like I said, I don't care how far it punches through, just that it's getting through, getting all the way through. I love that. All right, Muzzy One's up next. I'm not gonna lie, I had some of these, I don't know if it's the holes in them, they made this kind of whistle when I was trying to tune them in and they flew a little funny. And at the time I gave up on them, but that doesn't mean they're not tunable, and they haven't been. It just means that at that moment with that spine, that arrow, whatever it was, man, they weren't flying for me. Sometimes I just take the easier route. So here we go. Ooh, that is a solid pass. So this, you know, this shaped broadhead, you got three for 4 that didn't pass. You know, you got 1 that passed. Most of these though, that plywood's just shutting them down. All right, so I will say that all 4 that have passed, or 5 that have passed, all the broadheads have been completely intact, which is nice. Not really a bent, maybe a little nick, but like nothing major. All reusable. Next up, we got the Deep Power. I have a feeling this one's gonna get a good pass, is my visual assessment, just comparably to all the other ones that we've shot already. Definitely a pass through. We will see how far. All right, so premature assessment of your comments. And I've taken into consideration as I've been shooting these, it's like either this big pumpkin has factored in a lot more, or the mechanicals penetrate farther, cut wider, or better. I don't know. I'm a mechanical guy. So to me, that makes sense. So you haven't had a single one of these 100 grain fixed blade broadheads go past 7 inches of penetration on the backside, but there is a bigger pumpkin, so I'm taking that into consideration. But here we go, we got the Wasp. This thing is mean looking. They fly a little funny. I knew that was gonna happen. That blade is just too big. Stop dead in his tracks. But with those big old blades, I mean, that's kind of what you get. They get redirected, they get caught on things. Man, that thing didn't make it maybe an inch in. So there's goes why, you know, somebody would say they would need an outsert. Look at that blade, there was so much pressure on it, it just drove right back into the shaft of that arrow. The most anticipated ones by me, the Toxic, and the kind of theory and strategy behind these is a circular cut does not clot as easy, okay? So there's another one that we'll have here in a second, and it just makes a hole. These kind of bore out a hole, which is going to, you know, ideally make more blood loss. It won't clot as quickly as maybe a cut, you know, a straight cut. So, but I'm not gonna lie, field tested, I don't think I've ever got more blood out of a deer ever than when I shot one of these kind of quartering to me. So a front shoulder shot went right through, more blood than you could possibly imagine. So didn't go through. But man, with all that cutting, you know, those blades on there like that, I didn't anticipate it going through. But it looked like the blades got kind of bent and pushed off there as well. So now what we're gonna do before we hit off some of these knockoffs, we got 3 broadheads right now. This one being the Stinger, this one's 125 grains. So we are slowly gonna bump up the grainage of that broadhead, which should get, in theory, more penetration. So even though this is a nice big blade, that extra weight in the front should help out. So I love those nice big single bevel blade, little blade on the side, but man, that extra weight, you can tell it helped a little, but not enough. These last 2 are very highly anticipated by me. We got the Annihilator, which the theory behind this one is, again, that it's gonna leave like a triangle hole, which it's not a closed sealed cut, which again, will not clot as fast. This thing looks like it's just a bruiser. So we'll see, 150 grains here. So again, we're going up just a little bit. That plywood is unforgiving. I love that we did this because, to be honest with you, my initial assumption was that everything would pass. And here we go, 150 grains Annihilator stopped at the wood. So grand finale, we got the Big Daddy, the Iron Will. These things are like 60 bucks a pop, maybe even more. 200 grains. I got $100 on the line here, okay? My buddy bet me, and I actually agreed with him, but I just took the bet for fun. But now I think it's in my favor, okay? He bet me that this arrow would make a full pass through 1 piece of plywood, and I most likely would probably have to get 2 pieces of plywood to stop this thing. And he reassured me there's no way one piece of plywood in a pumpkin is going to keep back this iron will. I think it'll go through. I don't think it's going to be as much as he thinks, and it definitely ain't going to make a full pass. I'm about to get me $100. We'll go right through the middle, right through the guts. Again, I know it didn't make a full pass because I can see them fletchings, but I did think it penetrated the most out of any of them.
So, almost 5 inches. That isn't even the one that got the most. Broadhead definitely fully intact though, not even a nick on this thing. These things are so solid, it's incredible. But it did go right through that plywood like I suspected, but didn't go out the other end.
All right, last one. I got this thing out of my dad's archery case with an old bear, kind of Whitetail Pro 2 or something, just like one of those old compound bows. That thing was in the side case. I'm sure it's killed some deer. And just a single bevel. Kind of you can sharpen it on both sides, it looks like. Let's go, one last arrow here. This one probably went the furthest.
You know, 20-year-old, 25-year, 30-year-old broadhead, single bevel. It's not even, it doesn't even look that strong. It's just like a little flimsy piece. It's not bent. Looks still intact. But again, that makes Sue, that's the smallest amount of cutting surface there is. And look at that. It's been in one of my broadhead cases for years. Farthest depth, I think, or second to farthest. Yep, 6.5. I think the farthest was 7.
All right, so finally, all the broadheads have been tested. Now I know we missed a couple, and there's a couple out there that are really nice, the Severs, and some other ones that I wish I would have, but I just didn't have at this moment. So here's my thing, and I learned a lot from this, and I'm glad I did it just for my own personal knowledge. First thing, I mentioned it in the video, you can blame it on the bigger pumpkin or just the fact that smaller cutting surfaces such as mechanicals and adjustables will penetrate farther, as well as make larger incisions, which is my assessment way before I ever did this test. I told you guys inside when I was making my perfect hunting arrow video. I've talked to so many trackers, old heads, people who have been hunting just for years. They will tell you, if you want a great blood trail and the best opportunity of harvesting, let's just say a deer, because that's what I have the most experience with. Let's just keep it to one category. A mechanical is the way to go, an adjustable, especially if you're hunting, 80% of hunters are shooting from elevated areas. That downward angle, when the anatomy of the deer really trims up, getting as largest cut as you can, a large exit wound as you can, is going to help with that blood trail tracking, inevitably in the end, having a successful harvest. Okay, so that's my assessment. You can say it was the bigger pumpkin that was stopping these broadheads, but if we're gonna blame it on the pumpkin, I don't know. Second, larger blades, okay? Both of the blades that had really large blades, the Thunderhead and the Wasp, both of those got redirected inside the pumpkin. So once they made the initial contact with the outside, that big blade spun that arrow and it kind of came out in a different angle than which it went in. That's something else I think is good to point out. And then also, as we bumped up that arrow or that grain weight of each broadhead, the penetration definitely helped, but not as much as I would have thought. I would have thought that that iron will would have made it halfway out, maybe 15, 16 inches out. It wasn't even the most. The funniest part about this whole test is my dad's old broadhead, which is 20 plus years old probably, has to be. That thing got the second highest penetration of any of them. The ones that I lined up towards the end were the ones that I was thinking would do the most, would get the most. So it's always funny, like especially during both of these tests, the mechanical and the fixed, I think I was wrong in my assumption. And I love that because I think we all are. We all assume so much. It's like, man, until you get different bows, different gear, stuff in your hand, and it's tested in the field, I would just slow down and not have such a sure opinion about everything. I love that part of this Backyard Bows story and like our review process is like, man, take a back seat, listen to people that have been in the field more than you, that have more experience than you, just kind of keep that open mind during your entire hunting process for as long as you're hunting. Because I think the more we assume about things, the less opportunities you're gonna have. I think the more open-minded you're gonna have is the better. And I kind of, this opened up my eyes a little bit to different things, and still think the Schwacker's #1 overall, but I mean, that's just me. But man, you can tell that some of these, something about the cutting surfaces, they penetrate farther than others. And that's just kind of where we're at. What I do want to do is I want to get that Rage hypodermic, and then I want to get the Slick Trick, shoot them at the exact same thing, maybe a 2x4, and see which one, you know, goes deeper. Do a kind of a mechanical broadhead, fixed broadhead comparison, which would be nice. So we have all the mechanicals, the fixed blades, the weight of them, how many blades they had. If they did go through the plywood, how many inches did they pass through? You got the prices of the various broadheads, and then down here at the bottom we're going to start making a list of any ones that we might have missed that you guys have suggested that we're going to try to get our hands on, so leave it in the comments. But I hope you guys liked the video. I love this. We destroyed a lot of shit, but see you next time.